Lou?
They're not on yet? Yeah, they are, but I'll look for that up there. Let's just see.
We will start momentarily.
Okay. So I will have my phone. I'm gonna turn off your camera for now because Pam have to change. You can see. Okay. Whenever they start, so I'll turn back your camera. What did you say? No, because they can see. I just turn off it.
But before I do, I want to just mention that we have one of our board members is joining us via Zoom, Peter Ashkenazi. And so to comply with the meeting law, Peter joining us, we are also live streaming on YouTube as of now. Yes, and with that, I'd like to present the
All right, so I want to apologize. I know everybody's busy and has places to go, but it's a beautiful day to be in the park, so why not? Today we're having our meeting of the Board of Directors of the Brooklyn Bridge Park Corporation, and it's hereby called to order. I asked Amy Lojek, Secretary of the Corporation, to confirm that there's a quorum for today's meeting. Yeah, quorum. Thank you. I would also like to welcome board members, Eric and the rest of the Brooklyn Bridge Park staff, and Brooklyn Bridge Park's new director, Gregoria Mayers.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the members of the public that are joining us today. Following the agenda items, we'll hear any comments from the members of the public.
Hello.
Speaker registration card that can be found at the table where you sign in. When formulating your comments, please note that our policy is to limit our speakers to 1 2-minute turn per speaker. Please be respectful of the limit so that as many people as possible have a chance to speak. But here we won't run into that problem today. Let's now get started with the voting items for today's meeting. First agenda item is adoption of the minutes of June 12, 2024 board meeting, which is bookmarked in your board book as item 1. A draft of the proposed minutes was circulated to the directors prior to today's meeting, along with materials for all items to be considered today. Any direction to the proposed minutes?
Sometimes if they don't say anything, there is a message, so you can open and then read. But yeah, didn't start yet.
Okay, I now request a motion to approve the minutes of the June 12th, 2024 Board of Directors meeting. Second, all in favor? Motion is approved.
Yeah.
Okay, second agenda item is the president's report, a non-voting item, and I'll now ask Eric to present.
Thank you. I'm gonna be trying to be short, and I'm not using the PowerPoint because I really want to get to the voting items today. And the bulk of my president's report is actually really about one of those items. But very quickly, we had a great summer in the park. We had some really fantastic events, a lot of conservancy programming, obviously. The big event with Wimbledon actually moved from Pier 6 to the Emily Ward Road Plaza. It was significantly bigger this year, and just as popular, if not more popular. We had a big event with North Face where we had a climbing wall in the water right off of Pier 5. I don't know if any of you got to see it, but it's like massive climbing wall. Good press coverage, yes. We had last weekend we had New York Fashion Week, did the show for Off-White was here. My daughter got to meet Camila Cabello, so she was really excited. And Paris Jackson took the photo of them. So, you know, all good stuff. But it was a great summer in the park. Pier 1 construction is moving right along. We expect that project to reach substantial construction completion in the next couple of months and be open obviously well in time for the start of the upcoming spring season. With that, we will be issuing, we've actually just put it out, an RFP for the concession space that will be in that building. We expect to come back to the board in December with that recommendation after that RFP that process has gone through. While we're on RFPs, we issued an RFP for the Fireboat house where Van Leeuwen Ice Cream currently is on a short 2-year deal. Those responses are in, we're going through them right now. We have a board meeting in October, which is our annual meeting where we'll go through our PAAA. And that is also the meeting where we'll select a concessionaire for the Fireboat station. We have a couple of small items today, including an amendment to the Pier 1 contract, a small construction contract related to the Pier 5 top lot installation. But the bulk of today's meeting is really about the ice skating rink. And I want to thank everybody for, normally we don't have a meeting in September, and we are because of the skating rink. I want to thank you all for being so flexible with your schedules. I also want to acknowledge our Chief Operating Officer, Jeff Sangrund, who really jumped in very, very quickly to make sure that what I'm about to explain to you is what happened, and that it happened successfully. So, as you all know, last year was the first year of ice skating rink underneath the Brooklyn Bridge, something that has long been part of the park's vision and planning since long before the first shovel even went into the ground. And it took a lot of coordination, a lot of work, a lot of partnership with the deputy mayor and other city entities to make it happen. And we put out an RFP concession for someone to come build the seasonal rink and operate. We awarded that to IMG, who was working in partnership with Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment. They built the rink. With the rink was a building that had a concession, it had the amenities needed for said building. They operated from Thanksgiving to the end of February, and it was a 5-year deal with a couple of renewals. Every concession that we do, we make it turnable at will, just like in every other park around the city. The one difference we made to this contract was we let it be turnable at will on their side as well as on our side, understanding that it was a significant expense to build for them in an unproven model here in Brooklyn Bridge Park. They served thousands and thousands of skaters, but unfortunately, it did not work for them, and IMG has decided not to return. A lot of it has to do not so much with the rink itself, but with other things that are happening within IMG that they have decided not to come back to the park this year. That is information that we got from them mid-July. And so because of the vision of always having a skating rink there and how, not for nothing, how challenging it was to actually get that first rink open, we did not want to lose an ice skating season. And so we jumped in and issued an RFP for a skating rink operator, but not a concession this time. What IMG proved to us was that the concept worked, and we were able to prove that concept without the park taking any risk in that financially. And it did work. It didn't make a profit, but that's okay, because the park is not a for-profit entity. And so we issued an RFP for someone to come in as an operator to build a rink, to run a rink, and to remove the rink at the end of the season, and that the park would collect any revenues associated. And in doing so, that also means that the park gets to set the price. And because we're not a for-profit entity, we can set the price significantly less than what it was last year. Now, you will remember that last year the prices ranged anywhere from $13 to $25, depending on peak, off-peak, child, adult, New York City resident, not New York City resident. And then skate rentals were $12 across the board. What we will be presenting to you shortly is a contract approval for someone to come in that we will hire to do just as I said, to build, operate, and remove seasonally this rink, and that we will set the price. And the price that we will set is $10 admission, regardless of day, time, adult, child, resident, none. $10 admission. And somewhere around $5 to $7 for skate rentals. We're still running the numbers, which is why in the board memo it had that range of 5 to 7, because we're still running the numbers, making it the cheapest rink in New York City. And what our financials show us is that if we do 60 to 70% capacity, we will come really close to breaking even. And none of that speaks to any potential sponsorship or any other revenue that might be able to come in. And so we see this as a way to provide the same skating experience amenity at a much cheaper cost. And additionally, because we're not a for-profit entity, we're only looking to run a rink, we don't need the same level of building support services that were there last year. So last year there was a large building. The building was in the shape of a T. And part of that T was 2 stories, because on the second floor was a cafe. But we don't need to run a cafe. There's lots of food options all around, including lots of great park concessions. And so we can do a significantly smaller building that will have a trailer in the front where people can walk up to get their skate rentals. And then the same top of the T, if you will, but only 1 story for people to sit, put on skates, skate directly onto the ice, or wait as their families are skating on the ice in a heated environment. And so significantly less build, therefore significantly cheaper, less of an impact visually to the bridge itself, but still the exact same skating experience. The rink itself will be the same layout, the same footprint, the same size. And so that's the item, really why we're here today, but really thought that the background and context was important. Have a take.
The scope of free admission. I know
Yep.
you have free-
Yep.
Scope of free admission.
The scope on free admission is, so the rink operator, we're gonna do it as timed sessions. So each session will be about an hour or so. And we will have 2, I believe it's 2 free sessions on a weekday afternoon, and 2 free sessions on a weekend morning, which is very similar to the way we did it last year.
And then the second is, it says a term of 3 seasons. Do you have the same ability that you had in the concessions?
Yes.
And then after 1 season?
Yes, it will be terminable, just like all of our grants.
I think, I know you probably just said, so it's not the failure of the rate is not indictment of whether the rate can be successful.
Not at all. In fact, the beauty of how this has played out, I think, is that IMG was able to prove the concept
Right.
without it costing us anything financially to do so.
We just had, so there was a couple, for those who don't know, I mean, the structure itself, I think was just a lot of money. It just was really,
It costs IMG roughly $4 million to build and operate.
right, that's our structure.
And we believe that our build and operate costs will be half.
Right, and so that's one, and then number 2, that last winter was just
Or,
rain on the weekends.
but Greg, exactly that point, this gives us the flexibility. If come the end of January, we're looking at forecasts for February that were like February last year, we can make a decision where we say, yeah, we're gonna close thanks for a great season, we'll see you next season, right? As opposed to saying, well, we're contractually obligated to go through February, so let's go through February and spend a lot of money and no one comes to use it.
It was still standing the weather that is bigger structure or involved. Still tremendously successful. Popularity and community response. So the experiment worked, and the fact that IMG is not already has nothing to do with anything involved in this. Yes.
I honestly believe that if IMG was not going through sort of the internal restructuring that they were doing, we were talking from March to mid-July. We were in long conversations with them about improvements that we all thought could be made in order to reduce the costs and be towards profitable. And they were all in for this year. And then whatever's happening over there internally, unrelated to the rink, is what caused it.
Totally unrelated, and I do think that this new size scope is gonna actually eliminate some of the friction and issues. The cumbersome thing the other thing, hats off to Jeff, pulling this off. Such extraordinarily tight time pressure on this season. But I can attest to the longevity. The original illustrative master plan for Woodbridge Park almost 25 years ago had a big permanent structure with a wall of with a skating rink at the end of year 5. Okay, that tells you how long this has been sort of central to what people want as a park. Because you restoring the violence and support that way. It's not realistic of the engineering funds, but having taken as long as it did to get this to happen. This is really something special, something community and parking.
And assuming that there is board approval to enter into this contract, which we'll get to in just a little bit. Build out will begin in October and the rink will be open around Thanksgiving, just as it was last year. So, you have questions?
So this sounds really great, I believe. And also last year we talked about this, we were also excited. And like, this is the exact concerns we raised, like, this is a little bit higher, it's just gonna cost people too much, it's gonna be prohibitive. And so you were right about the concerns that we're addressing. So I'm really good. Now, whenever I went by there, it was always crowded. Of course, when you get in, which is the times that I was going, so it always seemed to be crowded and there seemed to be a lot of skaters. And then when I went up to the second floor, entrance, it was surprising because it was like, wow, this is a great underutilized space.
Yeah.
So that's, really interesting.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, they aren't marketing this, they maybe could be, selling more, snacks or whatnot.
Yeah.
So that seems to be, that's gonna all be gone, that's correct.
There might be, one of the conversations we're having is like, we might have someone that brings a hot chocolate push cart in and sells hot chocolate at a small price.
Yes.
Just for the amenity of it, not for the sales of it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then do you know, what was the rate of like uptake of the free tickets to the community? Because
Yeah.
these numbers sound fantastic. And
Yeah,
so
so
I would like.
They were utilized, the free tickets were definitely utilized, which is why it was important for us to continue that. And again, because we are a nonprofit entity and technically everything we run in the park, we run without making any money. We run basketball courts at a loss. If you get technical, that's just part of our budget. We were able to say, this is really important to us when we want to continue this practice. And that still, by the way, includes in the, if we sell 60 to 70%, we think we're gonna break. And it's possible, I want to be very, very upfront with the board, it's possible that we will come back at the end of the season and say, we only did 50%, and so we didn't, this is what it ended up costing us, and then that will be a decision that we'll make for next year as to whether or not it's something that we can continue to do. But our revenue is such in a place, in terms of our operating budget, where myself, and I'm gonna speak for Jillian Watkins, our CFO, because we've talked about this very late, we are not concerned from a financial.
Question. So at a lot of the other rinks, they were just available, skating,
Yeah.
hockey, some of them
Yeah.
are like private rentals. So would this still just be strictly public skating? Would any groups be able to rent it out
Yeah.
on off times just for skating?
Yeah, we did, that happened last year where there wasn't a lot of it, but there were some private rental events that took place there. They were pretty successful and they were during off time, so I think we'd look to do that type of thing as well.
That could,
Yeah.
help cover
It
the
looks that-
seats.
That exclude, sometimes it's, well, have experience with going somewhere, this is sorry, closed, private event.
Yep.
But you can understand for a for-profit commercial enterprise.
Yep.
It makes sense, but would you anticipate that would happen here, where people would show up and say like, sorry, closed, private event?
So I think we would have to be really upfront about our communications about that on the rare occasions where it happened, and it was rare. But I would say it's no different than when we had Fashion Week, for example, at Pier 2 on Sunday, and a number of the basketball courts were closed for the portion of the build, the event, and the breakdown, which we publicized in advance that like these courts for Pier 2 were going to be closed for this event.
Not all.
Not all, it's true, not all the courts.
I would urge you to consider whether you really want.
Yep.
To close. For any reason. For private events. So think about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
They're gonna build and operate.
Yep.
You don't own-
They're renting they will rent the company that we are contracting with, which is, and I'm sorry, I'm still a little bit time. The company that we are recommending contracting with is called the Experiential Group. They are an event production company. In fact, they are the event production company that does the Wimbledon events here in the park. So we know them, we like them, they know this space, and they are pros. They are then partnering with an ice skating rink company called Ice America that knows how to run a skating rink and how to build the rink. So they will rent the equipment. That is all there. That's what we're paying them to do. So-
So the rink itself is not.
Yes.
You
Yes.
don't own.
No.
also, you said you sort of break someone even.
Yep.
You go 60,
Yep.
60%.
67, yeah.
67. Utilization seen.
It really, it's so weather dependent. You know, there were days last year, like weekends where it was cold and not rainy. They were sold out all day long. And then if you look at the February numbers, there were like days where they did like 20 skaters all day. So it, you know. It's really.
We take the risk.
So that is the difference here, is that last year, IMG and BSC took the full risk. Instead of us getting $300,000 in concession revenue, we were able to provide free and reduced ticket pricing. This year, we are providing some free tickets, similar level of free tickets, and across the board, cheaper ticket pricing than the reduced ticket pricing that we negotiated last year. But the difference is that we take all the risk. We are going to be paying a company, you'll see in your board pack, we'll be paying a company $2 million in order to do this. That's an annual expense. Again, terminal will. That we are going to hope to recoup as much as possible. Still to be determined, but we would look to do similar to last year based on if it made sense. Like there were days, for example, like out of the holidays during the week where maybe they didn't need to open it 9 in the morning. There's nobody coming. Like maybe you wait till 2 o'clock and you lower your operational cost. Yes. Yes.
So you can adjust the
Yes,
hours.
we got weekly reports from IMG last year, so we know, we could tell you how many skated on what day.
And we're about to issue next.
Yeah, we would never go past 10. During the week, when my it's just not.
You talked a bit about the liability. Injury or injury.
Well, I will say, just as an opener before I turn it over to the lawyer sitting behind me, Amy and Joel, because while I tend to be a lawyer, we are indemnified by the city. But
Okay,
Yeah. By the city insurance requirements, so everything in the city agency would require as far as insurance, we require and we require the concessionary operator to indemnify us developing. As protected as.
But if someone falls, as we have seen in other instances, they sue everybody. So,
There's a.
yes,
Yeah.
There will be independent.
they will have insurance, 100%.
So the first by the operators.
That's
right.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Then
Absolutely.
And
bills that-
no different than when we worked with them on the Virginia.
Yeah, got it.
And every permit that we issue, we require them to have insurance, we require them to identify us, and then the city, you know, we function out like a city agency. So it's that.
Do you need a motion?
Not yet, we haven't actually. Still gotta go through the actual numbers.
Sorry.
Should we do, why don't we just do this one, if you don't mind doing a slight change from the agenda? Yeah, why don't we turn over to Jeff to do the details?
Well, I'm not gonna go back on this. Let's heard all about it. So after reviewing the proposals and the organizations, we decided to award the contract with the experiential group for a 3-year contract with 2 1-year renewals. The annual cost of this contract is $2,062,988 plus $206,286 and $298 contingency. There'll be a 3% escalation each year in the contract. So this year's contract in total is $2,269,026. We actually hereby request to authorize the enter into license agreement with TXG, the Experience Group, the Experiential Group, as described above, and then taking note of related actions.
In favor?
Well,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
So Greg,
Yeah.
Greg, not to put you on the spot, but now we need a motion.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh, wait.
Or question, oh, sorry, the finance,
Yes.
sorry, finance meeting.
You did, and Aaron meeting.
And now.
I see the.
Like, sports make.
No, it's.
What was it, what was the question, in terms of the rules? Which one was new,
Yes. Yeah, like all of our
in
concessions.
terms of.
I don't believe we've written into the contract that they can, but here's the reality. And this is true of all of our concessions. And while we put it in the contract with IMG, because IMG really wanted it to be terminable at will on their end, they wanted it written in. We view our concessionaires as our partners. If they don't do well, we don't do well. And so if a concessionaire of ours said, hey, this isn't working for us, we would work with them. We wouldn't sue them for the remainder of the contract, unless, of course, I was overruled by my board in that. But to give you an example, like during the pandemic, for example, we changed all of our concession agreements to highlight the fact that we view our concessions as partners. Our concession agreements are every concessionaire owes us a guaranteed minimum or a percentage of sales, whichever is higher, and that's negotiated in advance. When the pandemic hit and all of those concessionaires had to close, we changed all of our concession agreements to you don't owe us a guaranteed minimum, you only owe us a percentage of sales for the remainder of, this pandemic, basically. And so concessionaire said to us, meaning if I don't do any sales, I don't owe you anything. I said, that's right, because you're not just a business to us, you are our partner. This is about park experience and amenity. And so if a vendor of ours said, hey, it's not working, and we tried to explain that to IMG, but when you're dealing with a big company like IMG, the lawyers are gonna want it in writing.
Questions? Okay,
So motion.
I request for second. Motion to approve this request.
So
So you can make.
There you go.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Want to go through
Now,
third agenda?
yeah, that's great.
All right, the third agenda item is the appointment of a new director, Gregorio Mayers, to the Audit and Finance Committee. Now request a motion to approve this request.
second.
Second, all in favor? Fourth agenda item, authorization to enter into an agreement with Deborah Bradley Construction and Management Services relating to a capital restoration project, which is bookmarked in your board book as item 4. Kira Unger, BPP's data asset manager, will present this item. Hi, everyone. We are the company, we're not releasing country.
In June, the park published an RFP for this scope of work. Received 7 competitive proposals. After reviewing the proposals and interviewing the contractors, BPP selected Deborah Bradley Construction based on their demonstrated success in construction in New York City, their competitive price, and their status as a certified WBP. BPP is requesting authorization to enter into a new contract with DBP for a total of $350,096, which includes a 10%. Park staff have reviewed all proposed pricing for each scope of work with our table, our own representatives, and concluded that each sum is a fair and price for the services to be performed.
Director Phillips, can you present on it and?
Yeah. We will do this as well.
Any questions?
Just, can you give an example of where else we can work?
Every Park City Authority. I don't know where else they use this.
Okay, great. Good experience. Most competitive price on the job and a certified WB. So of the 3 or 4 boxes that we look to check, they check them all in space.
Any further questions? Motion to approve. Second. All right. Okay, fifth agenda item is the authorization to enter into an amendment with LNK Partners Inc. for Pier 1 entry building project, which is bookmarked in your board book as item 5. I asked Robert Lamanango, APP's project manager, capital projects and restoration. Hi, sorry, what's your name?
That's okay, not first time. For item 5, we are requesting board authorization to enter into an amendment to the existing LNK contract for the Pier 1 entry building. The proposed amendment will allow for continuation of general construction services by LNK through the remainder of the project. As further described in your board books, the total amount requested is $601,838. And BBB staff has reviewed all proposed pricing for each scope of work with Gardner and Theobald, BBB's owner's representative for the project, and has concluded that the sum is a fair and reasonable price for the work to be performed, and recommend approval of this amendment.
Let me jump in here, if I may, to explain what's going on. We did this with Dawn Finance, obviously, but, so this is the Pier 1 construction project, which was roughly a $14+ million project. We went with normally we go with a 10% contingency. This project, the bids had come in higher than we had anticipated, and we made a decision to go with a slightly smaller contingency than we normally go with, out of hopes of keeping the cost down. The project's taken a little bit longer than we expected. There have been some delays that are out of our control, and we really should have put in the full 10% contingency from the very beginning. So the conversation that we're having now, and the dollar amount that we're asking to approve now, is the dollar amount we should pass to originally. And so we apologize, I apologize for that misstep. Financially, we've got the money, it's not an issue, it's about $600,000. We're just asking that the board approve of us bringing the full contingency up to the 10%. Which because we've reached the contract value limit as previously approved by the board, we're not allowed to do so unless the board says so. Have to take it.
If there are further delays, et cetera, what is our recourse? Have we capped this at the 10% limit?
So every change order that comes in, we negotiate with and we fight down. We believe that this amount of money, this doesn't cover known expenses. This is to cover what we perceive will be needed for the next couple of months. So there's not a specific expense that we're making sure that we cover.
Okay, I mean, I just want to know if this 10% cap is expected to cover it all.
Yes.
That we'll figure out if there are other damage points.
That's correct.
We've made it clear to LNK. This is, I'm figuring.
And you give examples of some of the stuff that the unanticipated.
Sure. So the street work that we had to do, where we were connecting the service lines, water and sewer service lines to connect the mains of the streets, were much more complicated than the surveys originally seemed to indicate they were going to be. Required another contractor to come in and do additional work. That's one example. Another example, which we are not going to have to pay for, but there are related costs that we have to pay for, have to do with a set of stairs that were built that were not code compliant, but the code was not as clear as one needed it to be. And so there was a multi-month debate over whether or not the stairs were in fact code compliant. And DOB had to weigh in, and then they did. So that is on the contractor. However, all of that time spent with MVVA, with Todd and Billy, with Gardner and Theobald, they all work for us. And so they're spending extra time doing this, which is causing a delay and everything else. And so those add services are unanticipated costs.
Director Phillips, can you present the audit and finance?
Yeah, I mean, it's been expected. We talked about this yesterday and we are.
Any other questions? Request a motion approve the request.
So,
All in favor? Wait a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now we can move on to the next one. We don't have any. Okay. So we'll go through that list. We'll just move to the next.
Unless I have anything
Anything else?
for me. Go to the next site.
So we've established we don't need to go into an executive session. I want to thank everybody for their time and motion to. Second, all in favor? Next.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.